Hello and welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program we have an artist named Grant Summerland who has a new EP that's coming out March 29th. It is called Unnatural History Part 2. And yes, it should be no surprise that there's a Part 1 that came before this EP. So recommend checking those out. He also had an album called Bigfoot Museum we're going to talk about a little bit as well, and a side project I want to get into a little bit because it's really interesting to me. So we're going to talk about all of that here with Grant Summerland in just a few minutes. Before we bring Grant on in, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in my world. This past weekend, I took my son out fishing with a buddy and his wife and son. His son is less than 2 years old, so a lot younger than my son. But we didn't catch any fish, so it was pretty unproductive. And this is the third time I've taken my son out fishing. So and all three times not caught any fish. So it's a little disheartening. I want to, kind of teach him this art, this fishing, and how fun it is. But when you're not catching fish, it's not great. And the water was too murky, and it had been really windy, so it probably stirred things up. And if we can't see in the water, then the fish can't see in the water either, and are not going to be interested in your bait. So it didn't work out, but I salvaged the morning by taking my son on paddle boats around the lake, and he loved it. He's never been paddle boating before, and so getting to paddle and steer the boat and use a map to kind of see the layout of the lake and where the different piers are, and then a tower that was there, and kind of identify landmarks. It was a lot of fun. He seemed to really enjoy it, and so we did that. That was a great time. And then the next day, I biked out to Air Base the nearby, because there was an air show that went on, and I just went out by myself and biked onto the base and saw the Blue Angels and a bunch of other awesome planes take flight from very up close. I took my kids to that last year, and they enjoyed it, but they had a conflict this year where they were having lunch with my mom and sister. So instead of going and seeing an air show, they had lunch and I guess went to the mall or something. I don't know exactly what happened, but I enjoyed the air show, and also I made a video for put it all together, made a video. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool seeing the Blue Angels up close, and just, I mean, how in sync they are and how close they fly to one another. I mean, the skills of that, I mean, are just incredible. I mean, it's a really cool thing. So if you get a chance to see the Blue Angels ever, I'd recommend checking it out. But there were also other cool planes out there. I mean, lots of old planes from different wars and everything, and I can't claim to understand or know any of the history behind those. But it is something that is really interesting to get to walk onto the planes and see the helicopters that they're really cool. It was pretty warm, so had myself a beer. And then filled the beer cup up with water a couple of times to stay cool, because I didn't bring a water bottle in, and just really enjoyed the air show. I mean, oh yeah, the one other cool plane that I really liked. I don't remember the name of it, but it kind of hovered in air at different points too. It can go in different directions, and it shot rockets out of it in the sky that were like fireworks, and it was really cool. And seeing the Blue Angels kind of fly across from each other near hits, it was, I mean, just incredible, because you think one small slight mistake and they're doomed. It's the end. Luckily, we did not see any of those mistakes, but but I'm sure it's happened at some point in the past. But you just have to be so skilled to do that sort of thing, and then after the show, I mean, I left it a few minutes before it was over to try and beat the crowd out, and then I couldn't find my bike for like half an hour. I had to wander around, and I asked some of the people working on the base, but they didn't know anything. So I just had to find it. But I wandered for like half an hour trying to find it, and then Maps decided to take me on an extra 2-mile ride home. So it was 8 miles on the way there and then 10 miles on the way back. So whatever, however that math works out, uh, it it happened to work out that way. So it was a pretty fun weekend overall. And then I had taken an extra day off and gone for a bike ride in the hills and like did 18 miles on Friday too in the hills. So I just like getting out biking. And enjoying spring. It's spring now, and this is like the perfect weather. It's just such nice weather, but I also have to be careful how much I'm outside in the sun because even if I sunscreen myself, this face that I have, it just turns red. I mean, it doesn't take much sun to for it to turn red. So it happens, but the Irish in me. What am I going to say? I'm looking forward to some concerts that I have coming up, even though they're months and months away, and I'll share one at the end of the program that I got tickets to today. I won't spoil that right now, but uh, but I got some good shows, and I got some things to look forward to, and I realized that in in my life, I always want to have something to look forward to. Yeah, it kind of gives me purpose and meaning and an ability to kind of count down the days until I have something to look forward to. Like this Friday, hitting my 2400th Peloton ride and doing a live class, and maybe I'll get a shout out, and that'll be cool. And then I'm going to take the kids to go see the new Ghostbusters movie with their mom and stepdad, and have a good time. So lots going on, but that's enough rambling to get started. Let's go ahead and let's bring Grant Summerland in on the program.
Hello.
Hello, Grant. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Your day treating you well?
Day is treating me well. How's your day?
Not bad. You have a guest on your shoulder, and I appreciate when anytime my guests bring a guest of their own. So,
Of
you want to tell me a
course.
little bit
Yeah.
about your guest?
Sure. Yeah. This is my pet bird. His name is Monsieur, also known as Monsey. There's actually a song on the new EP that I'm sure we're going to talk about that is named after him. But yeah, he's my pet cockatiel. I've had him for about 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long do cockatiels last? Like, how long do they live for?
20 to 25 usually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got him when you were younger, and he's gone with you everywhere. I mean, and you've done some moving in your time too, right?
Sure,
So
yeah. Yeah, and well I didn't during college my parents very kindly looked after him. So he wasn't with me for all of my life, but he's been with me for most of my life. So yeah.
yeah, and he likes to hang with you. He just hangs on your shoulder whenever you're just riding or hanging around the house, that sort of thing.
Yeah, totally.
I
Yeah.
like it. And your calendar is the same type of bird.
Yeah, good catch. Well, it's funny because now since I've had him for so long, people start giving, when you're a certain type of person, people will give you gifts. So my sister and her boyfriend got me cockatiel calendar for the year 2024. I didn't ask for anything like that, but now I have, or people will
Yeah.
give me, stuff like that. So I have a lot of bird stuff now just because
Do
I'm
you
the bird
spoil
guy.
do you spoil it by looking ahead to future months to see the different pictures of the different cockatiels or
hmm Yeah, of
yeah,
course. Yeah.
okay.
There's
Don't
some
want to
good.
wait.
Yeah, Doug, I can't wait. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. I like it. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about the EP. I'm interested in kind of what music you were listening to as a kid. It kind of got you started. What was on in your household? What were those early influences for you too?
Totally. So good questions. So I mean, I pretty much so you're from California, right? Like you're from Northern
Yeah.
California. And so you can probably relate to this to some degree, but I very much grew up around like a lot of like the California rock kind of thing that was just kind of on the radio. And like I remember like American Idiot was like
Oh yeah.
I think that was the first album that I bought that was like my own thing. I was like I don't know. I was like 8 or something. Um and that also My Chemical Romance and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Fall Out Boy and that kind of whole like MySpace era. I think
Yeah.
that was probably like the first time I kind of started like paying attention to music. But my parents were really, my parents both also big music fans, and my dad is a huge like like dad. He's like the most dad rock of dad rock guys, in a good way, but like a lot of Little Feat, and Steely Dan, Van Halen. Those are kind of like some of the really big ones for my dad. So yeah, and just growing up around, my dad had some guitars, and other people who I knew, their parents had guitars just kind of lying around. And yeah, but then I will say what happened was I mean, I was always interested in music, but I feel like I didn't really start like writing music and everything until like I kind of tapped into that whole like wave of like indie music from around like 2010, when it was like really popular, Death Cab for Cutie and
Yeah.
Arcade Fire and
Oh yeah.
Broken Social Scene, and then Modest Mouse was kind of the first band that like really like clicked with me, and that was and there was a period where I think all I listened to for about like 2 or 3 years, from like I think like 13 to 16, was basically just Modest Mouse, and I was kind of a big Modest Mouse stan for maybe a little too long, but yeah. And so that was kind of
Yeah.
it. And then you branch out, and a lot of hip hop too, and kind of in the Bay Area, a lot of jazz too. That was my only sort of formal training I got when I was younger, was jazz music. And yeah, I mean I could go on, but those are kind of some of the basics.
Yeah, there's a lot to hit on there, and I know "Enema of the State" was an album that was influential to you too. Big Blink-182 fan, right?
Yeah. Hey, how do you know that?
Yeah,
I don't think I've
I,
said that out loud anywhere.
I know things. I know
Uh,
things. But
okay.
my last guest called me Narwhal. Because I knew enough. So
Okay.
going
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
interview,
Yeah,
so
good. Yeah, yeah, good. But yes, yeah. In fact, I even remember there was a day I think I brought home. It wasn't because I bought American Idiot, and I think a year later, I remember I went to there was a record store in Santa Cruz where I grew up, called Logos. It's not there anymore. It was this big like concrete building, and there was all kinds of books and movies, and I remember I got Enema of the State, I got Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age, and I think I got Welcome to the Black Parade, and I brought all three of
mhm.
those home. And I remember my dad was like, "What the fuck are these albums?" It's like every single one of them. He's like, "These are just." Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, of course, Enema of the State, and actually, I remember, yeah, another one of my early concert memories is going to see Blink on their when they reunited in like 2009. They
Yeah.
they played like Mountain View, and I remember I was in middle school.
Shoreline. Yeah.
Yeah, Shoreline. I went with a bunch of people from my middle school, and we were all like this. It was like the first time I gone with like friends to a concert. And my mom chaperoned the whole thing. But yeah, that was a core memory too. So
Who
yeah,
played that show with them? I might have been there.
it
Like
was actually, so in
it's
retrospect, so it was I think it was Hawthorne Heights, Taking Back Sunday, Weezer, and then Blink
yeah.
182. And at the time I didn't listen to Taking Back
Yes,
Sunday
I
or
was
Hawthorne
there.
Heights or anything. Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
and looking back, I wish I'd maybe appreciate Taking Back Sunday a little more, because I definitely like some of their songs now. But I was really there for Weezer and Blink. And Weezer, yeah, it kind of goes without saying, Weezer too, kind of a pretty big influence on me as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these bands, I mean, seeing them rise and grow like over the years has been incredible. Like, I mean, you mentioned Taking Back Sunday, and I saw them at Slim's in San Francisco in 2002, and like Fall Out Boy, we interviewed them at Slim's in San Francisco, around the same time, 2003. I mean, some of these bands, it's just crazy how big they've gotten,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and there's a tie-in also with Blink. I mean, I want to talk about a lot with Perfectly Adequate Whales, but
Thanks.
you call them the Blink-182 of indie rap.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, wow, you really did. I've never had, okay, so just to be clear, like I've
Yeah,
only been interviewed like a couple times, in my whole life. And so it's always like, and the questions are always like, well, yeah, what kind of music do you play? Where are you from?
yeah.
So to have someone who actually did not only did the research but knows what about Perfectly Adequate Whales, that's a good job.
Thank
But
you.
yeah,
We're gonna go kind of deep.
sure.
We could talk for 20 minutes on Perfectly Adequate Whales,
Oh, we
and
could.
it
Yeah.
won't be enough. No. But so Blink-182 of indie rap. Tell me kind of the tie-in and how that came together. So
And that was kind of just like supposed to be, well, because there were three of us, right? And the idea was that it was a trio, and that each person brought their own special kind of thing, and that Ben who is Immortal Orca Whale was kind of the X factor, kind of like Travis Barker, the one who's really proficient and good, and
were you MC Marine Mammal
I
or
was I was MC
Crocus? Okay,
I was
okay,
MC Marine Mammal.
okay.
And so yeah, it was just the idea was more this, that it didn't actually really make a lot of sense. It was just that we're a trio, and we're from California, and the music's just really stupid, and a lot of dick jokes,
A lot of
and
dicks, a lot of banging bitches, a lot of
yeah, which is so it's kind of like Blink-182 in that regard, and that's really all the extent of that really was with that description.
this is what I like. Okay, bitches be wanting some of my noodle because I flow hard and make a mean strudel. I keep it low carb without any lard. Tracy, now bring in the bugles. That
Yeah.
sort of lyrics,
Yeah, those sort of lyrics. Yeah. And those, and I don't know. It's funny because like I would just not do that now, right? But
it's wait. There's not going to be another perfectly adequate whale show
there will
coming up.
not be another perfectly adequate whales. But I mean, a lot, yeah, and a lot of it was kind of like, it was supposed to be this very absurd, just it was more about the rhymes than about the content, uh, and kind of inspired by, but like kind of like Doom, or
Mhm.
characters sort of like Doom, where it's very much this sort of like comic book character, who just lives in this absurd unreal world. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, I will say. I mean, and I
Yeah.
actually, I still think Zeitgeist, that the one album that we put out under Perfect Echo Whales, I still return to that. I'm just like, and a lot of that goes to again Ben, who produced most of that. Just some of the best production of anyone I've ever met.
I could say the content is hilarious, but it's actually good. Like I mean, like I, I know it sounds like I'm blowing smoke, but it's like I don't know. It just fits, and it shows you got like some skill in that realm. I mean, so like what kind of led you to that kind of that? I mean, that type of music because it's completely different than your other music now. So tell me
Yeah,
kind of about that
totally.
progression.
I have no idea on it. I mean, I think it was, I mean, and so I had a band in high school, and that was like where I wrote my first songs and played my first songs. And it was like an indie like folk rock band. It was called Rat Trap. I think some of it is still up on Bandcamp somewhere, very deep in the archives. But Ben, who from Perfectly Echo Wales, he was the drummer in that band, and we were just, we're still very good friends. Very good friends then, very good friends now, and I think the kind of rapping thing started out as more just like. We both. I mean, we were doing a lot of self-recording, and that just kind of led to us making our own instrumentals. And then I think we started, just kind of freestyling as a joke, and then we're like, well, we might as well record these. Then we brought our other friend in, and I don't know. I mean, I think just we listen to a lot of rock, we listen to a lot of hip hop, and I think that was just kind of our way to kind of experiment, especially with production, and kind of get better at that whole like side of it. And I think also the three of us really wanted to just like be able to make our own music from the ground up, like producing, mixing, everything. And that was a really good way to do it, and kind of do it on our own. And also just, in terms of like bouncing the ideas, it was really easy to like make, something, send it to someone, get feedback on it. And then, as opposed to the band, I mean, I think by the time we kind of started making all that, all three of us had been playing together in bands for a few years. And it was just so much faster to do the hip hop stuff. And that was really kind of exciting that we didn't have to demo, we didn't have to get like a bunch of people in a room together, we didn't have to like set up a bunch of mics on drum sets and stuff. And also just, but I mean, ultimately it's just because like it was funny, and we, that was kind of our like outlet just for like being what we thought was funny.
Yeah. Did you play
So
shows
no, okay. Well, actually, we played one single show ever, and it was a disaster. It was on the roof of my friend's garage, and I remember, yeah, it was, and we didn't have enough material or anything, and we got, I mean, I think it was just like 25 of our friends like showed up. And I remember like we didn't have any lights or anything, like because we didn't like think about it. I mean, like, and I was throwing DIY shows back then in high school, but that was kind of the most DIY because it wasn't again, it was just my friend's garage. And then I remember like we had a TV. We'd like gotten a TV from Goodwill or from the side of the road that, and we were like, okay, we're gonna have a part of the set, and we had this whole like performance art like theatrical thing planned out where we're like, okay, we're gonna like get some hammers and we're all gonna break the TV during this last song. And then we did it. And then I remember the cops got called like immediately because of the sound of breaking glass, and there was like, and so then cops showed up and the whole thing got shut down before we could even finish. But it wasn't in like a cool like uh you know Project X way. It was just the cops showed up and were like, hey, you need to stop, and we were like, okay. So that
Not
was
what
our
you would envision.
yeah, so that was our one show. And I mean, we were going to, I remember after Zeitgeist, we were going to play some shows. We had some scheduled up in UCSC. And then I remember COVID happened, and then of course all those shows didn't happen. And then by the end of COVID, we had all kind of parted ways and stopped doing Perfectly Adequate Whales. So never really a full set was ever performed by Perfectly Adequate Whales live, unfortunately.
Stand behind it. There's still time. So
There's still time. Who knows? 10-year reunion tour. Yeah.
exactly. It's been like 12 years, right? Like that, because that was 2012 when you did that.
Zeitgeist was 2019. Oh yeah, I
Oh,
mean
yeah.
there was. I mean, I think you're right. I think the first album came out. Well, yeah, it was 15. That first
Mm,
mixtape, Whale Rap mixtape.
mm,
So that is that. I guess. Yeah, I guess that would have been about almost 12 years. Yeah, which is crazy. But
yeah.
yeah.
And so we'll transition from there to jazz because in like you had jazz lessons in high school, but you hated piano when you were young. So like tell me kind of where you landed and kind of how you tell me about that portion of your musical
Sure.
endeavors.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it was just that. I don't know. I don't know. My mom wanted me to take piano lessons because I had I asked for guitar lessons and she said, well, no, I think you should take piano, which in retrospect was a very, very good call on her part. And then it basically was, well, you can take classical or you can take jazz were kind of the two options. And so I chose jazz. And that was cool. And definitely there was like some month like every summer there was like a brief like camp at the community college for like high schoolers to play jazz, and that was super cool. There's a really good jazz venue actually down in Santa Cruz, called the Kawumba, and that was where that was like the organization, right? It's this like nonprofit organization that owns this venue and is dedicated to jazz in the Bay Area, and so they were that was who ran that jazz camp. So that was a lot of my exposure was just kind of through that whole thing. And then of course, just like listening to jazz because of that. So some of my first real concerts that weren't like rock bands or anything were some jazz shows in Santa Cruz where I never knew who was actually playing, but my parents would say, oh, there's a very good pianist playing on Thursday, so we're gonna go. And then we would go. So and yeah, and then later, I didn't particularly enjoy the lessons, and the lessons weren't very consistent either. It was kind of on for a few months and then off for a few months, and then it was very casual. But it all kind of started to click a little more later, kind of coming out of high school, and I kind of realized how much I really did enjoy playing jazz piano specifically, and how much I did enjoy uh, just that whole kind of the art. I don't know, just the artistry of jazz, and especially after writing, having writing these indie folk songs that were very, verse chorus bridge verse chorus for so long. I don't know. I just kind of gain more appreciation as I get older for it, which many people do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people that come back, same sort of thing. It's tough
Totally.
because it's not that instrument you want to start with. It's not the one that gets the chicks or whatever, you know. It's but then having that foundation with, I mean, it really helps you later
Yeah,
down the
and
line
even
too.
just yeah, and even just that I taught myself how to play guitar because I knew how to play piano. And then because I knew guitar, then I knew how to play bass. And then the drum set, my uncle had left a drum set in a back room that I was able to use kind of growing up that I set up in my garage and stuff. And a lot of that, was as much jazz as it was guitar. Like I remember one of the first like LPs I owned was just actually like a compilation of jazz drum solos.
Mm.
And it's funny because a lot of those jazz drum solos are they sound a little rudimentary, right, by like today's standards, and they're not. I mean, they're actually quite complex, and there's a lot of artistry involved in that. But it is simpler than say like a Travis Barker fill or whatever. So a lot of
Oh, yeah.
me kind of fucking around on drums was like just being like, well, I could maybe I could do that. Um, and yeah, and also just in terms of records too, that was another thing is I think I eventually bought a used record player from a Goodwill when I was in high school. And a lot of those, a lot of the bands I was listening to at the time, I mean, the LPs were just like too expensive, right? I mean, I was a kid in high school. I wasn't going to spend $30 on a, Arctic Monkeys, the new Arctic Monkeys album or whatever, but I was going to spend, $5 on a used Miles Davis record. So, even today, my record collection is mostly jazz. And I kind of like that because it's really good music for putting on and just kind of being in the house, and kind of just writing or even just doing chores and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, yeah, I love jazz, basically.
Yeah. Good stuff. And growing up, did you in Santa Cruz, did you go to a lot of shows at the Atrium, the Catalyst?
Yeah, and it wasn't until like I kind of think kind of like late high school, but definitely, and that was kind of I mean my mother she grew up in Santa Cruz too, and
Mm.
so she had the same experience, and I remember she was driving me to one of my first shows there. I think it was Odd. I think it was Odd Future. I was seeing Odd Future when I was like 15
Mm.
at the Cows, and she's like, "Oh, it's like so funny that I did this as a high schooler. Now you're doing basically the same thing." But yeah, I definitely went to shows there. I'm trying to think if there were any big ones that are really worth noting. A lot of rap. That was another thing too. Is like Catalyst is a really good like venue for Bay Area rap.
Mhm.
So yeah, and that was kind of the only. I mean, that's kind of the only venue in town in of any that's like a medium sized venue for Santa
Yeah.
Cruz. And so whenever there was an event, it was there. And it's still, I mean, everything's. I don't know how if you've been back recently, but I mean, it's the same as when I went 10 years ago.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I don't think it's
it's like
changed a
I
lot.
don't
Yeah.
think it's changed very much at all. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get to a lot of shows in Santa Cruz, but some in the city, but the city's getting run down a little bit now
Totally.
too, you
Are
know.
you are
So
you up in you're like
um,
above San Francisco, right? You're in
um,
like North
y-
Bay.
yeah, I'm outside of in Vacaville. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but
Oh yeah, Vaughnville.
it's
Okay, cool. Yeah. Are you so like near Davis or like the other way?
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
like 15, 20 minutes from Davis. So yeah.
Okay, sweet. Cool.
West of Davis. So
West of Davis near Vaughnville. Okay, sweet. Okay, cool. Interesting.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah. We
Yeah, not
played
too.
Davis on our last tour actually. Which was cool.
I,
That was a really cool stop. Oh.
yeah, how was the tour as a whole? I wanted to ask you about that because that was your first tour, really,
Yeah,
right?
that was my first time touring. And it was funny too because that was something I feel like I even in high school when I was so I got a bird over here. Even in
You
high
do? I
school,
hadn't noticed.
yeah, I was like, oh well, we would play in Santa Cruz, and then we would go and we'd play in like San Jose. I remember we even played we played in Hollister once. That was kind of odd, but like we did that,
Mhm.
and then I was like, oh well, like right, the next like logical step is to do it multiple days in a row. So even like when I was like 16, I was like, well, eventually I'm gonna tour. Like it's kind of just like a when, not an if. And so yeah, like coming out of COVID, that was kind of one of my biggest goals. Was I was like, well, I really want to do a DIY tour. And me and my friend Sam, who plays in the band Worms and Dirt, um, who is Worms and Dirt really. So she helped me set it up with her. But yeah, so that was my first time touring. I think that was everyone who was involved with it's first time touring, both everyone who was in my backing band and everyone in the band Worms and Dirt. And so yeah, it was a blast. Some shows are better than others, but I mean, but I mean, we had a lot of good shows. I think we got kind of lucky. I've talked to other bands that, have had like these disastrous first, even second, third time tours. And we're gonna repeat it later this year. We're gonna do it in about 2 months again. So looking forward to that and seeing how it's different. But yeah, have you toured? Are you play music, right?
I don't. No,
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
I,
okay,
I don't have that bone in my body, and
gotcha.
I don't know if it's the ADHD or what, but I don't have the ability to focus and to sit down and do. I don't know. I appreciate music a lot.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, so you're gonna do it in a couple months. Are you doing California or are you doing up in
Yeah, so
Portland?
it's like a lot of the same towns as we did last time, but we're going from Bellingham down to like Arcata and Redding, so just like very, very North California, then back up. So it's mostly Washington and Oregon. It's a little short. Last time we did 2 weeks, which was long for like first time touring and a DIY tour. And so this one's I think it's like 10 or 11 days. But yeah,
Do you book the dates yourself, or like what does that process look like for you?
yeah. So me and Sam just kind of do it, and we just kind of get a spreadsheet, and we say, well, like I know someone in like last time it was like, well, I know someone in Davis, so I'm gonna like reach out to Davis, Sacramento area, and then we just kind of divide it up. Like Sam is from Seattle, and I'm from Portland now, so obviously we take those dates and just kind of who has a handle on which one is and which one we prefer even. So yeah, and then when it's a lot of just like reaching out and sometimes it's you kind of got to adapt. Like Sacramento was a place like last time we were like set on playing, and then we ended up like not being able to get a date that specific night. So then we went to Davis, and then so yeah, it's all DIY. We try to play as many uh all ages um shows as possible, and just kind of whatever we think is like the funnest venue. So like this coming one, we're gonna play in the park in Corvallis, like Avery Park, and then we're gonna play in a skate park here in Portland. And usually we had like a date at a bar. We have a hold that night, but we're gonna like switch over to the skate park just because that's gonna be kind of just a more interesting time and a more interesting show. So yeah.
Yeah. How's the music scene in Portland? And how long have you lived there? And
Yeah, so I went to college. I transferred around a bunch. I ended up finishing out of college up in Washington State, and then I came back down right after to Santa Cruz. So I was in Santa Cruz. COVID happened. Released Zeitgeist right before, and then yeah,
perfect timing,
it was
right? Like
perfect timing.
it was
Yeah,
just it was like right before, huh?
yeah. And so then so I was in Santa Cruz until 2020, like late 2021, and then I moved up here. So I've been here for about 2.5 years, I think, in Portland. Um, and well, it's also interesting too because you hear all these legends. It's like, oh well, before COVID, the scene was like this, and we had this, and now we don't have that, but we have this, and I don't have that, that reference point at all. So, but I mean, it's a good scene. A lot of good stuff happening. Very noisy, very sludgy, very DIY. And but that's cool. I think that's been very good for kind of where I'm at. And there's a lot going on, a lot of good people.
Yeah, yeah. Was Earthbound your first single with this project?
Yeah, yeah, Earthbound was.
Okay.
And then that was kind of the very early days of Grant Summerland. Was when I was off in college, and there were a couple of breaks in there too. But I mean, the whole time, I mean, I didn't have any. I was jumping around where I was moving a lot, so I never had like a band or anyone to play music with like on a consistent basis. So a lot of it was, and of course, I was kind of doing a lot of the production stuff with my friends too in Perfectly Echo Wales. So a lot of it was me putting together like drum loops and kind of using just like my keyboard to kind of do stuff, whereas previously I'd done stuff with the band. And a big influence too was avalanches. I don't know if you do you know the avalanches.
I don't think so. No.
Gotcha. Well, they have an album called Since I Left You, and it's a 1999 album. And it's one of my favorite albums of all time, but it's all samples. It's like a dance it's like a dance music. The term is plunderphonics for that like type of music, I guess, where it's all I'm pretty sure it's all vinyl samples too. And this was before they had computers that could like match everything up and like sync everything tempo wise. So it's like really this amazing technical accomplishment, and all the songs transition into each other, and it's all this one cohesive work. And yeah, I've never really heard anything like it. So that was a huge influence um, on me at that time. Was that, and that was kind of what I was trying to get at. But it's funny now, and I don't know how deep you dug, but there's some demos out there on my Bandcamp too from 2021, where I took
Yeah.
Earthbound and I was like, well, I was trying to
Patterson
make.
Grimlin.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm trying to get away from
Mhm.
this kind of like the being on the computer and everything being in the computer. So I'm gonna like go back and I'm gonna actually go back to making stuff like in a rock band format. And so then I made those demos. So now, for the last couple of years, my band and I have played that song live a lot. Even though it was originally the song was me trying to get away from playing stuff live, so it's kind of come back full circle. And
And
but yeah,
and you made those songs on tape with you playing every instrument, right?
yes, yeah.
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 Not
So
on tape. It
yeah.
was just, into Logic. But the idea was that it was me playing every instrument, but I was only allowed to do one take was my whole thing, because it was supposed to
Mm.
mimic how it would actually be live. But of course, I'm not four people. I'm one person. So that was, and of course, and when I originally put it up, it was just supposed to be like a reference point for a few people to be like, okay, like I'm gonna form a band to play these songs. This is what it's gonna sound like. And then I ended up just kind of keeping it up, because when I first came to Portland, when I was trying to play shows, people would be like, well, what do you guys sound like? And I was like, well, this is what we sound like. And now, of course, I have some more stuff out, but that was but yeah, and that is kind of what we sound like live now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bigfoot Museum. Um, so I want to start with you made a choice to take that off of like all streaming platforms when you kind of started releasing these unnatural histories. What was the idea
Yes.
behind that?
Yes. Good. Yeah. You are tapped in. Yeah. So I'm surprised. How do you know that? Because I feel like I posted all that. Like I put the only mention I made of that was on Instagram, and I think it was all on stories, which disappear after 24 hours. So, sorry, what
I've
was your
been
question again?
tracking you from the beginning,
Yeah,
waiting for
no,
this
seems
moment.
like it.
No.
Yeah. Sorry, what was your question again?
Yeah, taking it off of the streaming platforms to kind of make way for unnatural history. So like you're not going to play any of Bigfoot Museum live. You're just erasing it, except for this interview apparently, and
Yeah, yeah,
some places that I found that are out
totally.
there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and that was kind of a complicated relationship I have with that album, because it was, I mean, a lot of it was made very kind of scattered across, again, me moving around a lot during college. Like I technically attended, I think, like four different colleges. And just sort of wanting to really make this cohesive concept album. And so when I started out, I was like, well, I'm gonna make this album, and it's gonna be, it's gonna have like pop, but it's also gonna have jazz, but it's also gonna have hip hop, but it's also gonna have like the indie rock I was raised on, and it's all gonna work together, and it's all gonna be this cohesive story, and it's gonna be me, but it's gonna be a character version of me, and it's also gonna have like strings and like all these strings, but then it's also gonna have all these synths that are gonna be like this really dark, like low, like spooky, like horror movie sense. And it's gonna be like this song about how summer is beautiful. Like it's gonna be about how summer is beautiful, but also how like the horrors of like growing up. And like it was just like this like huge, like ambitious like thing. And so I'm really glad I did it, and I learned so much doing it. But also, I mean, it was when I got to Portland, I had that up, and then I had the demos up of the punk band demos, And so people would listen to them and they'd be like, I don't know, what do you, who are you? What is, like, I don't know what the fuck this is. I don't know what to do with this, because, you know, you have songs that are basically like drum loops, like, you know, in 808s, and like, you know, and then you have like a punk. So it just became very hard to like show very quick, because a lot of, because no one, I mean, and, you know, we live in an age where people, well, most people don't have the time to really parse through everything, and I think it all makes sense together. I really do. Like, I really think everything I've done since then is like thematically, like, it's just a continuation of a lot of those ideas. Even musically, I really don't actually think there's that much difference between a lot of that stuff. I think the only difference is that, you know, like, a lot of the energy is still there, a lot of the kind of like, emotions are still there. They were just kind of represented in different ways. But basically, the only reason I really took it down was it was just confusing people, and they just didn't understand if what to expect when they went to a show of ours, which I get, you know. And I kind of just got so sick of explaining it. And it was such an album that I made more just for me than anyone else. So I eventually just said, well, I'm just gonna take it down for now, and just kind of let, you know, Unnatural History EP1 and Unnatural History EP2 kind of like take up all, like, 100% of everyone's frame of view. So that was the thinking behind that. And, you know, again, I may put it back up one day, put it back up on streaming, kind of when there's like, maybe I have more work and people can kind of get a better idea of how it all kind of fits together. But yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure, and it does have different tones and layers to it. And again, I'm going to pull out a line, but from the song "Boogeyman," does his dick become a sword whenever enemies appear? And there's references to Camp Crystal Lake. We say I could fucking work there, that sort of thing. Like, I mean, there's these layers in that.
Yeah,
It's
and
pretty
the that stupid line is that's actually a Paw line. That was a Paw line that I
cool.
repurposed from
It
another,
feels. I was gonna say it feels like
because it
Paw
is
left
very
over.
out of
You know.
place. Yeah, but the thing was, like, when I was making it, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a bouncy, fun, like hip hop, like almost like pop song. So I was like, well, I feel like I should make a nod to that. Even it also was just like at that point, like, the album is so, there's so much of this like horror movie imagery, and it was like very self serious. So they have lines like that. But then, yeah, it's also just like, you know, a lot of it was just like also just growing up and having like a fascination with these, you know, horror movies, um, especially the ones that are about kind of like coming of age. Like Donnie Darko is kind of like, you know, one of the number one examples I jump to. But, you know, also, I mean, you know, like, yeah, like Friday the 13th and kind of those like old slasher movies, right? Nightmare on Elm Street. And there is like a relationship there between like, right, like these horror elements and also just like growing up, right? And like making the transition from being like a kid to an adult. Like, I think that's all present in there, whether it's like implicit or whether it's explicit. And so that was something I kind of wanted to, yeah, like point to pretty heavily there. And so, yeah, that's why you get some of those lines on songs like that.
Yeah, yeah, dig it. So unnatural history. So part one. When did part one come out?
Part one came out last year, I believe.
That's
It
right.
was February 10th, 2023. Yeah.
Right, right. And so tell me, kind of going into that project and what you were trying to define, you know, in terms of your progression, which is, as you said, is clear. It's a clear path for yourself, but kind of tell me your progress to unnatural history.
Yeah, totally. So again, when I kind of came up into Portland, I didn't really have any like artistic goals of of any kind, other than I just sort of wanted to play shows, because it had been a long time since I'd, you know, been somewhere long enough to really even have a band, or even, you know, with COVID and everything, like be in a music scene where shows were even happening. So it was just a really big breath of fresh air to be able to kind of just like say, okay, well, like, you know, this plays books, like this person plays bass, you know, like that person has a friend who plays guitar and listens to the same type of music. And so again, like kind of when I first started, like all of 2022, it was just kind of about playing shows, and was just kind of about, you know, really kind of finding out again how I kind of sounded and how I kind of operated and how like my bandmates operated in that live setting. Because again, it'd been so. I remember. I think the first show I played it was like March of 2022, and that was my first show since high school. I think so. It had been like 7 years, I think, or something. Which is a fucking long time. So
It's a while, yeah.
yeah, and so then yeah, again, I think I kind of wanted to, if Bigfoot Museum was like really just like this like kind of overextending myself and trying to do like so many things at once, right? I kind of just wanted to kind of narrow in on a couple things. And so that's where that little, 5-song EP came from. Um, and and it was supposed to be like very like short and sweet. Like it was supposed to be that there wasn't like too much even going on thematically or like too much even going on musically. But it was supposed to show, like this is what I sound like now. If you come to a show, like this is what it is. And also I did want to go into more of that kind of anthemic sound that you can hear on like Real Boy and you can hear that on Impressionable. But at some point along the way, I kind of really fell in love with that like with guitar, bass, like rock music, like that sort of thing. Like there's a band called Crying. I don't know if you've heard of them, but like they're like they're in the whole like emo scene, like but they're not really emo. They sound kind of more almost like Bruce Springsteen, but if like it rocked like even harder. And yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples, but there really was this sort of like I wanted to push towards that. And I do it even more on the new EP, but yeah, it's kind of a rambling
Yeah.
answer. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No,
Feel free to push back.
no, no, that's good. It's good. And so with the new EP, was it planned the whole time as a two-parter, like, or did it kind of progress that way?
Yeah, and because my thought was basically that like, well, I could release like I could just make a really big long album, or I could just kind of make songs as they kind of came up, and then just sort of, and also just because I was like, well, no one knows like who I am, right? I've never toured, right? The band is new, like this is called kind of a new era. And I was like, well, it's kind of just better to release like 2 EPs or even 3 EPs than like just come right out the gates with like a whole full length. So eventually I am gonna make a full length, and that's actually like mostly written. But um, just when I was writing songs, I was like, well, this one would go with this one, but it wasn't really make sense for this one to be on the same release as this one, even if they're all kind of part of the same thing. So I definitely knew that there was going to be a second EP, and there was a planned third EP, which I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. It might just actually end up being a full length. But yeah, and especially because like you write a song, you're like, oh, that's an intro song right there, and then you put that aside, and then I wrote another one. I was like, well, that's an intro song too, and I was like, well, can't have 2 intro songs
Yeah.
on one release, can you? So, but yeah,
So how
and
did the Ballad of Captain Chup win out?
huh? How did it win
How
out
did the Ballad
as?
of Cap? Yeah, yeah, as
Yeah,
the intro
well,
song.
just because like just because I mean that was a clear interest. I mean I wrote Real Boy first, and then when I wrote Ballad of Captain Shep, I was like, well, this sounds like Real Boy in a way. Has a lot of the similar elements, and it's like, and originally that it's actually I'm now going to backtrack a little bit on what I said. That was originally going to be actually like the fourth and fifth track, like that into What Did Bill Watterson Do Today. That was going to be the end of this coming EP, Unnatural History II. And Camellia Bush song was actually going to be the intro because I wrote that and I was like, that's an intro track right there. And then, but as more time went on, I actually flipped it. I was like, no. Like Ballad of Captain Shep actually comes first, and you actually what you got to do. It was like a puzzle where I was like, and I was like, just thinking about track listing for like a whole month. Even after everything was done, everything was mastered before I even like started the process of like setting a release date and everything. I was like, how like these are supposed to go in an order, and I haven't quite figured it out. So yeah. But then like yeah, and then like a song like Real Boy, like the song like I wrote that was one of the few Grant like the songs I'm playing now that I actually wrote during COVID. Um, and that was definitely one where as soon as I wrote it, I was like, oh yeah, this would like start something, you know. Um, so yeah, but yeah, to answer your question, it was always like the plan to have like multiple EPs that were like part of the same thing.
Yeah. And so the new album that you're working on, what is that? What's the feel for that? Is it kind of along the same lines as these unnatural history albums? Do you kind of progress in a different direction?
Sort of. I mean, I can't say too much about it because it's not fully written.
Yeah.
So I don't want to like say anything that isn't gonna really end up being true. But just kind of the way it's going, a lot of it is um just like being really inspired by these really long, big, ambitious. I don't want to say rock operas because that's not like quite the case. But do you know the album "The Monitor" by Titus Andronicus?
No, you're mentioning a lot of music I don't know now. So
Oh no,
I
no,
don't
it's all
know.
good.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
have.
So I highly recommend it. But basically it's an album by a New Jersey band called Titus Andronicus. It came out about 10 years ago. And
Okay.
it's just such a fucking banger. Like I think it's like the best punk album ever made. And it's all a concept album. Everything flows together as kind of one big song. And that was an album that kind of rewired my brain pretty big, kind of in the early days of college. I don't know, it just takes like a lot of these rock conventions that I grew up with and were just so familiar with, and just kind of like push them out to such extremes, and just create something that was like just like so passionate, I guess, for lack of a better word, but like just like really, really, I don't know, makes you feel like you can do anything in the world. And so I've always, in the back of my head, I've always been like, I kind of want to make my version of the Monitor. And so that has been an inspiration for this upcoming album. Not necessarily going to say right now that I'm going to necessarily succeed, but that is
Yeah.
definitely part of it. And there are other elements too I can point to that are kind of that big. Um, Cosmic Thrill Seekers by Prince Daddy. That's like that's another one that is just kind of like this really big grand album. And then of course you get like, if you want to go all the way back, like, David Bowie and
Yeah.
Ziggy Stardust, and a lot of just these very ambitious, just kind of like high end albums. So that's what I'm thinking. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. You mentioned Prince Daddy. You crowd surfed at a Prince Daddy show. Do you like to crowd surf?
I do. Yes. Yes. You
Yeah.
really did do
Okay.
yeah. Good job. Damn. Yeah, I like to crowd surf. It's fun, especially like, here in Portland, right? The DIY scene,
Mhm.
can have some pretty fun shows. I definitely, there's all the etiquette, of course, of a punk show, and I think if you're gonna crowd surf, you should only do it once during a show, if at all. And it's got to be, the right environment, and make sure everyone's safe. But yeah, I do like it. I think everyone should crowd surf at least once if they're able to.
I've never
I
done it. I've never done it
Yeah,
actually. So
yeah, it's super fun. Yeah,
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 that's cool. I've done some moshing, So
totally. Yeah.
yeah. And so, as we kind of look forward, tell me a little bit about. Oh yeah, well, there's one other thing I wanted to hit, because we talked about Blink 182 before. You did a Halloween show where you played a bunch of Blink 182 songs. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I mean, it's I wasn't even like really aware of this until like just like last year, but it's like, I guess, pretty standard practice for like, indie scenes to have Halloween shows where bands dress up as other members and play entire cover sets. And so when it came to do that, just kind of between me and my bandmates, we were like, well, what's the easiest thing we could could do? And like we're like, what's a band that where we know all the songs, and it wouldn't be very hard to learn. And like it's, I think within like 30 seconds we're like, oh, it'd be Blink-182, of course. And so yeah, and so we did that. And Mike, the guitarist Benedict, actually dressed up like the Enema of the State cover. And yeah, we hit a lot of songs. We actually, but there was one in particular. I don't know how big of a Blink-182 fan you are, but their best song is in my opinion, and actually everyone in my band's opinion, is Asthenia from the self-titled album. It's like not a single. It's
Okay,
like
I'm
one of
not
the
that big apparently. I
well,
can't I
it's like
can't name
it's like
that
this
one.
deep. It's like this deep cut on. It's like, I think it's like track 10 on the self-titled album, and it's just like, where Tom DeLonge, right? Because eventually he went on to do Angels and Airwaves,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
a lot of people, which was like too spacey, like a little too like U2 for like a lot of the original fans. But it's just at the point where he's like starting to get into that sort of kind of out.
UFOs and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Where he's like just starting to get into that sort of out there sound and like expand. Like it starts with like a NASA transmission and these like really low synths, and then like, but then it has like, I don't know. It's just like the best of everything that is that band. And it just kind of they never like replicated it again since then because it was kind of like this very, I think, specific point in history. So it was actually we learned that song, and it was way harder than any of the other songs. And we actually ended up not have we couldn't play it because of time constraints at the show. So but it was really fun to learn that, and oh, and of course we did Aliens Exist, just because of like my whole thing with like the Bigfoot Museum, and
Uh-huh.
we
Yeah.
we have like the original shirts, the first shirts that I made for Grant and the Summerlands, which is the name of me and my live band
Yeah,
was
yeah.
had a UFO, a car getting picked up by a UFO on it. So I had to learn that one. But yeah, no, it was fun. I'm a big I don't know, like I'm a big Blink-182 fan. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to meet them or any of your musical heroes?
Um, I've not met them. I've met some. I like I'm trying to think kind of my biggest music heroes. Kind of the biggest one for me was I met Scott Hutchinson in 20 I think I was in high school still. So I think it was probably like 2014. Who was the lead singer of Frightened Rabbit, if you know them. And then he ended up dying a couple years later, which was really sad, very, very sad. But he made music that was really important to me, um, especially in high school and kind of, you know, the growing pains of getting older and stuff and becoming an adult. And so that was really cool. And he played a really small show in Santa Cruz at not the Catalyst, it was called the Crate Place, which is the smaller venue. There were like local bands play. So he did like a
Mhm.
solo set there that I was able to go to in high school. So that was cool. I've met Killer Mike once briefly. That was kind of cool. Obviously a big Run the Jewels fan. And
Yeah.
Paul, actually going back to Perfect Echo Whales, I will say one kind of what our biggest influences were probably Run the Jewels and MF Doom. Those were, I think those are like probably like top two. And then yeah, and there's been some other ones, just like after shows, like being able to meet, bands briefly. No one as big as, yeah, like Blink-182 or anything in that kind of level, but even now, so something that's really interesting about the internet, and I don't know if you've found this when like doing this show, but I actually find it
Mhm.
impressive how easy it is to talk to some people online. And
Yeah.
even like Empty Country, formerly Symbol Z Guitars, if you know that either of those groups, but songwriter Joe from both of those, so growing up, another huge band for me was Symbol Z Guitars. And every now and then I just ask him questions about stuff online on Instagram. I'll just be like, "Hey, like for this album, did you use this, or like did you do that, or I noticed on this song you guys like do this technique. Like, how'd you achieve that?" And he'll always like hit me back in like a day. Just a very nice guy. But it is cool. I guess that is kind of one of the originals, like wonders of the internet, right? Is that it does like
Yeah.
eliminate these boundaries of communication, and it does kind of put everyone on a similar, not the same, but a similar, playing field in some ways. So yeah, what about you? You met because I was looking,
That's-
I was looking through this. You've interviewed some pretty big people, and do you just message them, or do something? Do they ever come to you, or
y- but
what's your
I don't
process?
do it. What's my process? I don't do a lot of the online messaging of bands a lot. I mean, a lot of it comes through publicists and it's there's a level of it that's fishing. Like, okay, you gotta, cast out to catch a fish. And asking, and sometimes that happens and works. Other times it's like, okay, I've interviewed a number of bands with a publicist and they have other bands that they give me and that sort of thing. And so then I'll fall into it. Sometimes it's I can I set up stuff with shows that come through. Like before COVID, this used to all be like just audio and just doing going out to concerts every week or two and interviewing bands at shows, whoever's coming through the area. And then this little COVID thing happened, and then now I can talk to bands all over the world, and it can be however long like it used to have to fit in. Okay, we got this 20-25 minutes here between sound check and and there's other bands sound checking in the background sometimes, and then they got to go out to get food to eat, and so you got this tight window to do it, and it's got to fit into this thing. And now it's people in their homes, around around tours and wherever they are in the world, and what however it lands, really, it's pretty flexible. So yeah, I've been doing this since I was 18 or something, so over 20 years. I mean, interviewing bands since I was a kid, really, and got some big names, got some small. It doesn't really matter to me. Like, I mean, Blink. Okay, yeah, I've hung out with Mark Hoppus for an hour, but that wasn't even an interview. Like, one of my closest friends is friends with him, and so we hung out with him before a show, and just hung out. And I was like, I wanted to just do the interview. I wanted to get the
Yeah.
interview, but just to get it. But I mean, he's like, I'll get you an interview with Mark. I'll get you an interview with Mark or something. And I'm like, cool. If you do, great. If you're not, but like people like you, like just researching and getting to know music. And I have such a different way of listening to music than most people, because it's like, I mean, I do this almost every week. And then I'll listen to a band for leading up to it, and then and then on to the next kind of sort of thing. In a lot of cases, unless I really like the music, and then I'll hear music, and then I'll bring it back out. But and I have nostalgia bands that I like and stuff too. But yeah, I think that it's kind of an answer. I mean, so you get stuff along the way, and then you build relationships with publicists and managers and the bands themselves and that sort of thing. So um, it's just fun to hear about people's stories, because everybody's got a story. You've got a story as much as Mark Hoppus has a story. I've never actually interviewed him. I met him a couple of times.
Totally.
So
Yeah. Cool. What was he like? He seems like he's just like
oh
how he is on like record. You know what I mean? Like he seems like there's no like character, or like, or any, like he seems like that's
yeah.
just like kind of who he is. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
is
He was
that
cool,
yeah.
man. Yeah, I mean, and it was just like chatting and everything. And Travis is playing drums, like practicing 10 feet away, from us, right behind a curtain. And but yeah, so Mark, he just flew in from LA on a private plane for this show in Concord in the Bay Area, and he was just like pulling up his iPad, and he didn't know where I was explaining to him where he was and everything, and like where we are in the Bay Area, and yeah, it was just cool and chill. And then Matt Skiba was playing with them, at the time, just a couple of years ago, and so he came in at one point and just talking to us, and so yeah, it was a pretty cool hang, to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's super cool. That
Yeah.
reminds me, not my story, but it was someone I know, someone I know's story, who they were hanging out with Doug Marsh of Built to Spill.
Okay.
Like I think it was either right before a show or right after a show, but they were at the venue, and they said the whole time, because you think it's very funny sometimes with especially like songwriters in that sort of in the indie rock sphere, especially those that are very like kind of like spacey and like cerebral and abstract. People like Doug Marsh or like Isaac Brock or something, but you think of them
Hmm.
as almost like these like poets who kind of exist in a different world. But apparently Doug Marsh the entire time was just like watching like funny videos on YouTube, and that's like just what he spent the whole time like doing, which is really funny because like I just like I find it so hard to envision the person who's
That
singing.
brain, yeah,
Envision the
has
person
those.
who is singing these lyrics and writing these Built to Spill songs, like just like chilling in a green room, like scrolling memes on YouTube or whatever. But of course, I mean, like, of course he is, right?
Yeah.
But I really love stories like that too. Especially there was a band I really liked, way in high school called Mimicking Birds. And they were from Portland, and they were on Modest Mouse's label at the time. And I remember I saw them in high school, and same deal where it's like these very beautiful, very poetic lyrics, mostly about nature. And then and I remember meeting the main singer, and just he was like such a normal guy. I remember he even made a joke about like he's like, oh, we're gonna release this record on 420 so we can like smoke hella blunts while we press play. And I was like, I cannot fucking believe that you just said that. Like that completely shatters like all like the image of you that I had in my head. So it's always, I don't know, it's always interesting to like kind of hear how people are like
Yeah.
off camera for lack of a better
Yeah.
phrase. Yeah.
And you have some people that are interesting too. And having done this so long, when I was younger, I got into, myself into some trouble a little bit. Like within 24 hours, let's see, Danzig called me dumb, and then Jared Leto kicked my video camera. So that was cool. So
That's pretty cool though. I
um,
don't know. Like
yeah, yeah. So I've gone away from those sort of situations a bit, but as
yeah,
I'm now 40, but it uh yeah, it's a lesson, it's a learning field. I don't know, it's fun.
totally.
It's
Yeah,
fun to
yeah, yeah,
it's
no,
fun to, it's
no.
fun to be a part of the scene and kind of have experiences and moments, and especially when I was doing this, I keep telling stories, but no, I mean, like doing interviews 20 years ago, around then, and going to concerts and taking a camera. Like, I would be the only person at these concerts that had video of these concerts. Now everybody's got their phone out, of course, and everybody has video of
No,
the
yeah, that
concerts.
like that's a really good point
But
because like and it is very um I don't know, it's just like it is interesting just how like I remember like when I was younger like a video camera being out was like a weird like it was weird and
yeah,
different. It was only coming out for like family of like the family had one camcorder in the whole entire house that could record video and like if we got it out it was because we were like doing something big and special and even then I feel like we would only record like a minute or two of footage at like a birthday party or whatever and then you
yeah,
go back, yeah, and like on YouTube, right? And like again, like I have a I don't know about you, but I have a complicated relationship with the internet because I both hate the internet and I love the internet at the same time. But one thing I do love about the internet is that you can go back and on YouTube, right? There are these videos of even way back in the 90s of like Modest Mouse playing these like very small rooms or Fugazi playing these really
yeah,
small rooms and you're just like I'm so fucking glad that this one person showed up with a video camera and was able to catch because it'll be the only they did a whole tour and there'll be like a one video that has survived the whole thing. It'll be a 15-minute long video and the audio sucks and you can't see what the fuck is going on but you still get a
yeah,
feel for it, right? And it's just like so cool that someone had the foresight to go and actually do that. And so so thank God for people like you is what I'm saying. Like that's that. I mean, yeah, and it is just so interesting how I don't know, like a documented things are now, of course, which is not a
yeah,
particularly insightful observation, but I mean, it really is. I do think there is something fun about um, you know, the shows I hear about where like they don't allow phones in and uh, I don't know.
yeah.
It's a push and pull, I guess, but yeah. Good for you is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Good for you for
Well,
taking
thank you.
taking those video cameras into those venues. Yeah.
I have so many tapes from those old shows of bands before they got big and everything, and it's just like one day I'll put it all on YouTube or something, like it's just all in mini DV or SVHS tapes that I don't even really have a platform to get it on. It's
Yeah,
just like
yeah, yeah.
there. It follows me around. It's in the closet in the other room, and they exist. So when I find a year to just sit down and do it,
Totally. Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
yeah. Well, Grant, I want to thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it, and
Yeah,
uh,
totally.
super cool chat. I knew this would have layers to it, especially when I got into the paw music.
Yeah,
I was
well,
like,
yeah, and again, you came out
this
of
is
the gate
good.
again. Like kudos to you for doing the research. Like, I really do appreciate that. Again, you're the only person who I haven't like known like personally who's like brought up paw. But it is, and it is. I mean, like that is actually like an important part of me making music. So I appreciate. I do
I'll,
appreciate that.
now that we're at the end, I can tell you where I found out about it, because yeah, it's not like heavily out there, but
Sure.
you did an interview around Bigfoot Museum with two guys, and one of them who was like toking a bong the whole time, and you dropped it, and I had to rewind. I didn't watch the whole interview; it was long; it's like 2 hours, but you dropped it. Oh yeah, I have this other band, perfectly like it was, and I had to go back to hear it again, because you just slid it under it,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like. Then I went digging.
No,
So
that was good.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was yeah, yeah. I know we got to go in a sec, but that was because that was the only interview I think I did an interview with my local paper about that album,
Mhm.
and I did that other interview for that podcast. And the reason I was on that one, the album concept hour, was because they were podcasts just dedicated to concept albums. So I remember that was the connection. There was like I had a concept album, and then they were like, this is cool. Let's talk about the concept album. And so but that is a very deep cut. So again, good. You're a good journalist. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've
Totally.
done a couple. This is like 435 of this show or something. So
Yeah. I noticed. Yeah.
it's
No.
it's fun. It's
Good
fun.
stuff.
Uh,
Well, cool. Well, I'll let you get
oh,
on with your evening, but yeah, thanks again.
that was the interview with Grant Summerland here on Concert Pipeline, and I have a guest with me for the end. My dog Navy is here to join, and that takes us to the final segment of the program, the music news. Couple of stories to wind us out here before the program ends. First off, Lady Gaga is returning to Las Vegas with the Jazz and Piano residency. She's confirmed that she'll be returning in 2024. She's a 13-time Grammy Award-winning singer, and she's making her way back to the Sin City for an 8-night run at Dolby Live at Park MGM. It's going to kick off June 19th, run through selected dates in July 6th. She took over the same venue last summer until early autumn with her residency, which celebrates her love of the Great American Songbook and features reworked versions of her biggest hits. So you can check out tickets for that if you are interested. All right. Vampire Weekend. This one is an interesting story. Vampire Weekend is going to live stream a special solar eclipse show. And so the eclipse is going to take place during the show, throwing the outdoor venue into complete darkness. And that's in Austin, Texas next month. The band's going to play the Moody Amphitheater on Monday, April 8th, with the show expected to start at noon local time and run for approximately 2.5 hours. Woo, it's a good show. And at 1:36 p.m., there's going to be around 2 minutes of complete darkness as the moon passes directly between the Earth and the Sun, with parts of North America projected to experience the rare event. Which I think is probably a little bit of a bummer because it's my son's going to be in school and he was really interested the last time we had a solar eclipse and wearing the glasses to see it and that sort of thing. But they're going to live stream the show on the streaming platform Veeps. Tickets are free and can be claimed online. And the show will take place just 3 days after the release of the band's 5th album, Only God Was Above Us. And last week they released the latest single, Classical. So if that interests you, which it should, that's pretty, I mean, I haven't heard of bands doing anything like that. You can check that out. Okay. And Beyonce shared Cowboy Carter album artwork in response to backlash over country music. She says, the criticisms I faced when I first entered the genre forced me to propel past the limitations that were put on me. I think you just got to earn your spot a little bit sometimes, and everybody shouldn't judge until they hear it, probably. But I remember I listened to the first single that she dropped as country and saw the artwork, which is pretty provocative for the album, and I don't know. It seems like she's trying to fit herself into a peg a little bit, and I think a little bit of surprise from a genre that she has not endeavored into, that is kind of has culture behind it, isn't unfathomed. I mean, it's not a surprise. I don't know. It shouldn't be a surprise anyway. But the upcoming 8th studio LP, Cowboy Carter. Let's see. She shared the name of it. There's a photo of a horse saddle with a red, white, and blue sachet that read Country Carter. Many people believe that the photo of the saddle was the official album artwork. And then today, on March 19th, she took to her official Instagram account to share the actual artwork for the LP. And she's in white cowboy hat with long platinum blonde locks, wearing a red, white, and blue leather outfit, holding an American flag, and wearing a Country Carter sachet while sitting upon a white horse, kind of sideways. It looks like the horse is galloping, and she's sitting sideways, like not even on the horse. It's odd. I'll just say it's odd, but she can do her own thing. It's up to her. The Decemberists will announce, they announced a new double album, As It Ever Was, So It Will Be Again. They've shared details on that. And the new LP marks the band's ninth studio album and the first since taking a 6-year hiatus. Set to be structured as a double album. That album was produced by lead singer Colin Malloy and Tucker Martine, and is set to feature a variety of star-studded collaborations with the likes of The Shins' James Mercer and REM's Mike Mills. Set for release June 14th via YABB Records. 30 Tigers and the band have shared the intriguing new single, which is a 19-minute long prog rock epic titled Joan in the Garden. So they've been kicking around the ideas for that song for a while. Colin Malloy said, I got into a Joan of Arc kick after reading a beautifully batshit novel, The Book of Joan. I want to make my own version of Joan, but the song that came was as much about the creative process as it was about the actual woman, about angelic visitation and creative visitation and the hallucinogenic quality of both. So you can check that out. They audio of the song is on YouTube. If you want to hear the 20-minute version of that song from the Decemberists. And then exciting news, Foo Fighters just announced this week as well that they have a one-off show in Concord, California, and in August, which I'm pretty excited about, being the Dave Grohl fan that I am. And so I got tickets today. I was pretty excited about that. Lawn tickets, I wanted pit tickets, but apparently the 5,700 people in front of me also wanted pit tickets, and they got to choose first. So I'm just glad to go. It'll be a lot of fun. I look forward to reporting back on that many months from now. But that is it. So, all right, that is our show for today. Thank you, Grant Summerland. I really freaking enjoyed our chat. It was a lot of fun. Check out his new album, Unnatural History II, which comes out March 29th. And if he's playing some shows, definitely recommend checking him out. And again, I'm still holding out hope for Perfectly Adequate Whales getting back together. He says it's not going to happen, but if there's enough demand, it could happen. So, all right. For next time on the program, we're going to have an artist named Vanderwolf. So thank you for tuning in. For all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I'm Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.